Voilà, alors d'abord je vais donner la parole à monsieur Michele GALATOLA qui va nous présenter le développement d'une méthodologie européenne pour le calcul de l'empreinte écologique de produits et sociétés.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the invitation to this important workshop. I'm indeed working for DG Environment in the European Commission, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is the work that we are doing towards the development of an harmonized methodology for the calculation of environmental footprint for products and companies. The first thing to clarify is why the Commission decided to do that. Which is our policy mandate? Well, we basically have this mandate has been built upon a different number of policy acts, starting in 2008 and then with the most recent one in 2010 and 2011. The basic starting point was the evidence that in Europe there is a blooming of environmental labels and methodologies that may cause some threats at the level of internal market proper functioning. So there was a request coming from the Commission itself in the Single Market Act to develop an harmonized framework so that any problems could be reduced or avoided in the future. And then the Council, so the 27 member states, decided to ask the Commission to not only to explore the feasibility of having a common approach, but to develop it. So to have an harmonized methodology at the European level that should be based on life cycle assessment. And all this has been then taken up in the resource efficiency roadmap. That is one of the flagship initiatives of Commissioner Barroso II, and that was published in September 2011. And in this resource efficiency roadmap, there are a number of actions in which the environmental footprint is mentioned. And there again, it is clearly said that by the end of next year, so by the end of 2012, in Europe, we will have a common, or at least the Commission will have to present a common methodology for the calculation of both products and organization footprint. And here is the text that is specifically referring to that. And if you want to start to do some analysis of text, then you will find out that there are a number of keywords that are worth to keep in mind. So it is said that this environmental footprint will be somehow related to information to consumers. It is also said that it falls under the more wider work that we are doing in eco-design and energy-using products, energy-related products work development. And it is also said that it could be the base for a refining of the existing eco-labeling schemes in Europe. So what are the actions that we may do in the coming months and years? We are analyzing the different policy mix for existing product categories in order to see if they are working as they should or if we need different legal framework for products. We are considering a revision of the EU Eco-Label. We are considering how the Unfair Commercial Practice Directive is currently implemented and if we can do something more on green claims and greenwashing. We are considering to what extent we can ask member states to be more proactive in linking VAT and environmental performances of products or linking financial incentives to environmental performance of organizations. We are considering how to extend producer responsibility, and we are also probably next year starting to work on sustainability criteria for food commodities. In this graph, we try to visualize what's the environmental performance of products distribution in the market and which are the policy tools that we currently have in order to tackle with that. Basically, currently we have the Eco-Design Directive that is basically trying to cut out from the market the worst 20% performing products. And then we have the eco-label, the EU eco-label, or all the other type 1 labels that are trying to reward the 20% best performing products on the market on a voluntary basis. We don't have any tool currently that is addressing the central part of the line where most of the products are currently placed in terms of environmental performances. And that's where we are trying to see if a new approach can be used in order to drive the entire curve to the right instead of only focusing on the tails. So the work that we are doing, and we are doing it internally in the Commission, we didn't externalize the work. We are looking at what already exists at international level, because as correctly Bonnie said in her speech, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, we don't want to replicate things that already exist and that are already working. So we looked at all the major methodologies for products and corporate. And the reason why the Sustainability Consortium is not mentioned there is not because we didn't look at it, or it's not because they are not recognized as one of the most interesting experiences currently ongoing. It's simply because when this analysis was done, there were not yet available documents on the methodological level for Sustainability Consortium. So we are currently discussing with them. We have a very open channel of communication, but they were not taken into account during the analysis. What the analysis proved is that there are some spots that prevents the existing methods to be used in terms of policy making in Europe. And those hotspots were referring to the consistency of information, the way in which environmental impacts was assessed, data collection and guidelines, feasibility of use for SMEs, and also the lack of specific guidelines for sectors and products. So we built on that, and we started working on the methodological level. The methodology will be based, as I said, on life cycle assessment, because that was the request from the Council. So it will be a multi-criteria method. It will look at all the most relevant environmental impacts. It will be for sure in line with the ISO standards, and it will be very, very close to most of the existing methodology, especially for the product level. On organization, it's a bit different because their life cycle has not been used widely in terms of organization performance measurement. So there it is a bit more difficult to be very much close to the other approaches. It will be based on product category rules, what we now temporarily call product footprint category rules and organization footprint sectoral rules. And what is very important, because this is really the trademark and this is really the difference compared to most of the other existing experiences, is that comparability will be given priority over flexibility. I mean, all of you who know ISO standards, you know how important they are and how much we need standardization. All those of you who have used ISO standards to make an LCA, you know that you have a very wide, large way of changing assumptions and rules in order to steer the results of your study. And that is a problem when you want to use the results of that study for policy making or for a comparison of different products or different companies. So we need to have a methodology that is less flexible in order to be more comparable. So we are starting from the ISO standard. We are working through the ILCD handbook that was also mentioned today during the first speech. And then we will be developing product category rules and environmental sector rules. What do I mean as an example when I say it will be less flexible? For example, it will be attributional only, no consequential will be allowed. Offset will not be included. Probably we will have a threshold as a cutoff at 90 or 95%, still to be decided. It will be only midpoint life cycle impact assessment allowed. There will be specific rules on data quality. the life cycle impact assessment method will be clearly spelled out, so there will be no possibility of using whatever impact assessment, but only those that have been recognized through an extensive stakeholder process as to be the best of art today. There will be clear rules on biogenic carbon, delayed emissions, and temporary storage. Normalization and weighting, that, as you know, is excluded from the ISO standard 14014, is not included for the time being. It may be part of the methodology at a later stage. And then there will be clear rules on review and reviewers' qualifications. What's the timeline? It is very strict, and that was not decided by us, by those who prepared the council conclusion. They decided that by the end of 2012 we have to deliver, so we had to adjust the timing in order to be able to deliver. And that is introducing some kind of non-standard procedure for the Commission in terms of, for example, stakeholder consultation. So what we have done, we have done the analysis of the existing methodology already in March, and this document is not yet publicly available. It will become publicly available soon. We are waiting for the feedback from the methodology owners, developers, because of course they have to prove that the information provided there is correct. Then we have drafted a first guideline for both, one for the product and the other for the organization. The first guideline for product was already available on the website, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. In these days, probably it is already today. I didn't check because I'm just coming back from Taiwan, so I didn't have time to check with my co-workers, but probably it's already available, the second version of the product environmental footprint and the first version of the organizational environmental footprint methodology. And we will have on those two methodologies a stakeholder workshop in Brussels the 29th and 30th of November. The reason why the methodology have been published now is because the stakeholder workshop will not be an open one for logistic reasons mainly. So everybody will be able to comment on the methodology because they are already available on the website, but not everybody will be able to attend physically the workshop. The people that will be attending the workshop, and we had to make a prioritization again for logistic reasons, are member states, because they are one of the major stakeholders, because there was the council asking us to do that. Will be the companies who are road testing the methodology, something I will mention in a few minutes from now. All the international partners that have methodologies developed, so Sustainability Consortium should have received the invitation, UNEP should have received the invitation, and PAS 2050, the ADEM, I think, should have received the invitation for the BPX 3323. All they will be sitting there, and then we will have the NGOs represented there and the major European industrial associations. As I said, we are running road tests for the both methodologies. We have about 10 products currently tested and 10 organizations, is much less than France. But again, that was due mainly to time reasons and to resource constraints. The product test will end by December, and the organization test will end up by February 2012. Starting December, we will have a public stakeholder consultation through the internet. That is something that the Commission usually does whenever there is a policy coming. The stakeholder consultation, again, will be on the policy options. It will not be on the methodological details. That one will be dealt through the other process that I already mentioned. All this work should end up with a communication, or two communications, one for products footprint and the other for corporate footprint, that is planned to be published in September or October 2012. What we don't know yet is if there will be, which kind of policy application will be linked to the methodology. That is still to be discussed, because we are waiting for the feedback coming from the pilot testing. We are now starting an impact assessment on the different policy options, and of course we want also to see the indications that we receive from member states and from industries. Why two methodologies and not only one? The reason is that they have different scope, but at the same time they are not completely different. So there is quite some overlap between the two, and this is considered as a positive feature because it means that if a company would like to have both the reporting on their environmental performance and also make some EPD or labeling or whatever will be asked to on the products, they can use basically the same data, and the process is very much similar. So for this reason, the two methodologies are similar, and for these reasons, some of the companies who are doing the testing both on the two methodologies, so they can report back to us which are the problems and which are the synergies among the two. There is a confidentiality agreement with the companies, so I cannot put any brand name and saying who is testing what. But what we are allowed to disclose is the sectors that we are testing. So as you see, there are the usual suspects. So food and drinks, retailers, construction, chemicals, ICT, footwear, paper and televisions for products. On the corporate side, we have food, feed and drinks, retailers, public administrations, energy production, ICT, water services, paper, mining and chemicals. Another difference compared to what France is doing is that in our testing we are not testing the label itself. It's not in scope for our testing, but at the same time we acknowledge the reason why France has been doing that, because that's a key part of the entire process when the process is finalized to providing information to consumers. That's not necessarily the case for our activity. But when it is the case, then of course how you communicate is fundamental. The way in which we are dealing with that, we are running now a parallel study through some surveys in 3 member states, Italy, Sweden and Poland. And we are also testing different way of communicating this information. We are looking at what to communicate, how to communicate and where to communicate. And another thing that we are looking at is the WTO implications. Because as you know, whenever you go for a mandatory labeling, if there will be any in the future, I'm not saying there will be one, but we have to be ready and explore all the options. Whenever you go into that direction, there could be some trade barriers, implications, and WTO rules have to be checked and verified. And we are doing also that. Another thing that I want to announce is that we will have another workshop on the 14th of December. The date has to be confirmed, on which we will look at the incentives, so more for the organization side, and we will look at which kind of incentive we can link to this methodology in terms of administrative incentives, economic incentives, and reputational incentives. If you want more information on this event, you can send us an email here. I put the web link to the 2 activities, the corporate and the product, and also the functional mailbox to which you will get a reply within 48 hours. We have this policy, then within 48 hours you will get a reply to your question. Thank you very much for your attention.